What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Kenny Tunison here, and today I got a doozy for you. All right, I'm going to tackle progressive overload and the three lies that I see most commonly told about progressive overload. So let's get right into it. Now, the first lie is going to be that you need to add weight every single week in order to gain muscle. So the truth of the matter here is that eventually you will get to a point where you can no longer add weight without sacrificing technique or risking injury. Instead of focusing on adding weight each week, you should be focusing on getting all you can out of every movement you're doing. Make sure your technique is spot on and that you are hitting the intended muscle instead of just throwing weight around carelessly with terrible form. Stimulus is the main driver of muscle growth, not adding weight each week. This is why you see so many guys, they're benching heavy ass weight, all right, a lot more weight than I bench, yet their chests are lacking in size and definition. And that is because, again, strength does not equal size. I'll touch on that a little bit later on in this video. Now, the second lie that is told, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the first lie I told a few seconds ago, is that you need to add reps every single week if you're using the same weight. So let's say you're doing standing military press, you did 135 on week 1 for, 8 reps. Then you would be expected to get that 9th rep the next time you hit shoulders and you're pushing around 135. Now, the truth of the matter here is that you should be trying to add reps every single week, especially if you're using the same way. I'm not saying that you should not be trying to add reps. You should be. But there comes a certain point where you can no longer add a rep, or at least it takes a month to add a rep, all right? Or I think realistically it'd be like 2 to 3 weeks to add a rep. But the main point here is that it slows down, all right? You're not gonna be adding a rep every single week when you get to a certain point, all right? That's like beginner stuff. If we were all adding reps and adding weight every single week, we would all be lifting 1,000 pounds, right? By like our 5th year of training. But eventually it will be next to impossible to add reps every single week, which is why it's better to either add more sets or to even shorten your rest periods between sets. And you will be surprised by how much strength you will lose when you do this. If you're going from, let's say, 3-minute rest breaks, and then you go all the way down to a minute to a minute and 15-second rest breaks, you're going to be surprised at how much strength you'll actually lose. All right. You're going to have to drop the weight each set by 5 to 10 pounds, maybe even 20 pounds in some movements. This is something that I'm going through right now. I went from having these 3-minute, sometimes 3.5-minute rest breaks all the way down to a minute. And it's a culture shock. All right. But it needs to be done sometimes if you want to reach that new stimulus for the muscle. You want to shock the muscle, as Arnold would say. It has to be done. But don't let this drop in strength discourage you. All that matters is that you are intensely working the intended muscle. And another thing that I would like to add to this segment is that you should be working every muscle group at least 2 times per week. A lot of guys that I know can actually get away with doing 3 times per week, but not everybody can do it. But you should be doing each muscle group 2 to 3 times per week if you want to maximize your results as a bodybuilder. With all of that volume, you shouldn't be expecting to see crazy strength gains every workout. It's just not sustainable. And as I said before, if that were the case, we would all be benching and squatting and overhead pressing like 300, 500, 700 pounds by the time we're in our 5th year of training. All right. Again, it's just not sustainable. And it's actually ridiculous how this common idea is just pushed out there in the industry. But the third and final lie that I will go over here when it comes to progressive overload is that getting stronger on, whatever lift you're doing means you're gaining muscle on that lift, which is not the case. All right. I don't know about you, but when I was trying to add weight every single week, I was compromising my technique, my form, the control of the weight. My joints were kind of getting beat up. All right. I wasn't really targeting that specific muscle that I was trying to hit. And, when I look back on it, it kind of just looks like a big waste of time. The truth is that strength does not equal size. Yes, they usually go hand in hand. If you see a guy with big muscles, he can usually push some big weight, right? But that's not always the case, all right? Because there are so many guys that are way smaller than me, but they can lift a lot more than me, especially on the big three movements. And that is because strength is not the main driver of muscle growth. Stimulus is. Now, I'm not making this video to say that tracking your progress is a waste of time. I recommend everyone to actually get a notebook and write all of their workouts into that notebook. All right. Log down all your reps for every movement, the weight you're doing on those reps, log all of that stuff down. But what I am trying to say is that you shouldn't be so obsessed with it. It is only a small piece to the puzzle. There are so many other variables at play here, like recovery, diet, lifestyle, and a bunch of other ones. All right. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. I'm tired of seeing all these clickbait videos that get thousands of views, millions of views, and they just push out the same message. Just make sure you're adding weight each week to the bar. But it's not sustainable. What happens if you can't add weight anymore? No one talks about that. No one really dives deep into what to do when that happens. Don't fall for it. I've been training for just over 6 years. And when I was in my 4th year of training, I was dumbbell incline curling the 40 pounders. Guess what I'm dumbbell incline curling today? That same weight, the 40 pounders. Yes, I didn't get stronger at the movement, but I have improved my technique on it quite a lot. I used to swing the weight, and now I just control it the whole time. And guess what? My arms have grown just about over 1.5 inches on each arm since that time. So it works. The stimulus works. I didn't get stronger at all, maybe a little bit because I have improved my technique and my form on the movement, which, that is a form of getting stronger on it. But if I was so tied up into adding weight every week on that movement, I'd sacrifice the form, the technique, and I probably could have injured myself. So that's the whole point I'm trying to drive home here. There's a lot more to muscle building than just strength. And if those of you are wondering, what's the body fat percentage now compared to when your arms were 1.5 inches smaller, it's only 2 to 3% difference. All right. I was about 10%, I would say back then, 11% body fat. Now I am 12.9 or 13%. All right. Where did I get that number? I measured it yesterday, first thing in the morning with some calipers using the 3-site skin method and also the 4-site skin method. So pretty accurate. All right. Probably as accurate as it's going to get, but I wasn't one of those guys that got to like 20, 25% body fat and was like, oh, look at me. I got 19-inch arms or whatever. All right. This growth happened from stimulus training. All right. And that's just changing the stimulus, right? I know Arnold used to say, shock the muscle. You're going to have to do that because you're not just going to be able to keep adding weight every single workout or keep adding reps every single workout. So to end this video, I would say when it comes to defining progressive overload, I would just say to do more than last time. All right. Do more than your last workout. That's all progressive overload is. That's not just adding weight or adding reps. That could be shortening the rest periods, like I said before. It could be doing more sets. All right. There have been times when I've done all the way up to like 9 sets of a dumbbell incline curl. All right. Just because I was feeling it. It wasn't always just 3 sets or 2 sets. Sometimes you got to do more. Sometimes you got to do less. All right. You're going to have to feel it out Only you are going to know that. I'm not there with you when you're training. If you're hitting something and you're like, not really satisfied with that right now, do another set. All that matters is that you're stimulating the muscle. You're training hard, all right? Training hard to failure, okay? And that's that. That's all that really matters there. And consistency, that's the biggest thing that matters, all right? But that's pretty much it, guys. All right, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for sitting here listening to me ramble on, all right, about progressive overload. But as always, thank you for watching, and God bless. I will see you in the next one.